later.
We certainly had a goal at one point where
Sorry.
I was like, we're talking with Rishi.
Bomb cyclone in the Pacific Northwest.
Every single time we're doing alpha wipes or getting the
Sorry.
stuff to play.
Bomb cyclone.
Seeing
My
and
bad.
hearing about
I
people
didn't.
using
I didn't
exalts
make the weather
during
bad.
Act 1, then we have failed.
I'm back.
And we need to drop more of them. And so we ended up, like, I would say, honestly, in the last month, we have, like, over, like,
bomb
8
cyclone,
to 10
Pacific
times the amount of
Northwest,
currency
bad
dropping.
weather,
you know, and
occasional drop frames,
there's
drop,
the cool
drop
things about
stream,
it as
drop
well, which
connection.
are the subtle things like
I'm back,
the boss
right?
is way more
Tell me
likely
I'm
to
back.
drop the higher tier currencies and
Hello?
stuff because, again, rarity
It said
affects that as
reconnection
well
successful.
now. So
We're
you're
good?
like way more incentivized
good,
to go
right?
and kill bosses to get them, and there's
me,
heaps
right?
of
I thought it
awesome
was
stuff
their
around
stream
there,
too.
but
It wasn't.
We're actually
It was
now
me.
finding people are
Hello?
exalting gear during the
Hello?
campaign,
Am I
throwing
back?
it on weapons and building weapons
Hello?
from scratch that you find very good.
Am I back?
Transmute, Org, Regal, Exalt.
It says I'm back, but chat's not acknowledging that I'm back.
Org, Regal, Exalt is like a thing that you're doing
Hello?
often.
Yeah.
And
It
like
says
you
I'm
go-
live,
like
but
you find good bases and
nobody's
do stuff
answering
like
me.
I can speak to that experience. So I've played
Ivy,
probably
off.
6-ish hours. I'm most of the way through Act 2 on my
Yo,
list,
hi.
and
Yes,
I
if
found
Fargan
maybe
says
6
I'm
or
back.
7
Am I back
results.
on Twitch?
I
Hello?
Took a ring from like a 1 blue stat ring that had a nice roll, maybe a nice life roll or something, and crafted it up to 6 property rare. And I crafted a crossbow that I found with
Twitch?
sockets that had a good damage roll on it, and I took
Oh,
that
it looks
to
like
6
I'm back on
properties with
YouTube, but
multiple
I'm not
damage
back on
mods,
Twitch
and
or
like,
X.
each time that power was going up, and so
Oh
I
my
was-
god, and
I
it
was doing that.
reset my
feels good.
title.
I felt like the bottom
Come
was
on.
Regals, which was actually kind of interesting because I don't know if that's intentional or just luck, because I did really have
Just
to think about
taking
which
forever.
blue items were good enough
There we
to
go.
take to a rare,
Yep.
so that I could then put my exalts on them.
So you get more of those by disenchanting rares.
Yeah, they
so
are
effectively-
farmable.
So they are farmable.
Yeah,
which
no,
is,
it was. It said I was
completely
reconnected,
intentional. Yeah, we
and
wanna
then
make
it
sure
never
that, like, you don't have
reconnected me,
enough
and
of
I had to
those, like-
manually
so you get,
do it.
So generally speaking, it's like you're going to want to keep like I feel like once you get like more than like 5 or 6 transmutes, then you
Also,
stop
it's
disenchanting
the
blues
wrong
and start
title
selling them
to
instead.
boot.
Yep.
And the same thing can be
It
true.
went back to
also
the
for,
old title
for Regals, where it's
very,
like, okay,
very
once you've got more than a
annoyingly.
certain amount, then you're like, okay, I can stop having to disenchant the stuff and kind of switch over.
Thanks.
But the nice thing is like when you don't have enough, there is a way to get them, which I think is really important. And the same is true with the socket currency as well, where it's
Literally
like you know, when
went
you don't
back
have enough,
to
you
the
can start
old
salvaging. I
title.
know you were telling me you were buying stuff from the vendor with sockets in order
I
to salvage it.
surprised them with
gonna
my,
take that
with
yeah,
my
yeah.
methods, my degenerate ways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that
bomb
stuff, it's
cyclone
just
in
really
the
nice to
Pacific
have, for
Northwest.
people to have the ability to
Internet's been spotty today.
you know, to get that stuff when they need it, and so it's nice that like all that really basic stuff of just like getting items to.
I've been here the whole time,
is now
Nevia.
way easy to get, and that solved a problem that we had through quite
Thanks
a
for the
lot of
83
betas,
months, Kellene.
where people were saying they didn't feel like they had enough control, like they didn't feel like they had a way to advance their character
Yes.
when they needed to be able to solve specific problems. And I think the socket thing really has helped a lot with that now, because now we have a way finally to be like, okay,
Been
if
here
I need
the
a bunch
whole
of fire
time.
resist, there is a way to get that, and I've got the tools to do it, and I've got items I can use to do this stuff. So that has helped a huge amount, I think, of solving those like you know issues that come up with your character.
It's only
And
down
this
for like
is to
45
confirm
seconds.
How you've solved bench crafting. The question
Exactly.
of
So
that.
we went through so many iterations of bench stuff. It was like a huge thing. We implemented tons of UI. Like there was tons of wasted time there implementing crafting bench
need some
things.
tea
The
again.
problem that we had was that the systems that we were making, it's
This
like
has
we could
gone on
balance
so
them
much
in the
longer
ways
than
the
I
players
thought
were
it would.
happy with, and then the designers were very unhappy. Or we could balance them the way the designers were happy with, and the players were unhappy. And it's like when you've got a system where like you're fighting the players for how the balance should be.
Yeah.
Like you can tell that means you have a system that is bad. But I think we were very.
Listen, I don't control the weather.
I myself, honestly, was too slow to recognize the fact that a complete overhaul was needed.
Yep.
Then at some point, the socket stuff originally came from the Varlog.
Ivy,
Like it was
chill.
designed there.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I don't know who came up with it. I think it might have just been you, who said like, why don't we just
Rishi.
Rishi thought of that. Okay, yeah. So Rishi thought of the idea of like, hey, what if we just put sockets, you know, in early game? What if you got them in Act 1? What if you had runes that would let you get the you know the basic boss as the way of solving the remedial crafting problem? And so then suddenly, as soon as we do that, it's like, oh, like I'm happy, you know, players are happy, everyone's happy. So that means we have a good system that is working, and you know, and gets those good feelings.
Hey,
so,
hey,
that I think was a real win. You know, yeah, I love how that system is feeling at the moment.
Yeah, so the bench was achieving 2 things kind of in its way, which was maybe even 3.
No,
The
I'm
customization
happy.
for one, like you take an item and you can do something more to it,
Sure,
firstly. And then you've got the problem fixing of like,
Yes.
oh, I need a bit more fire
Yes,
resistance.
yes.
And then the third thing was like the meta crafts.
Yeah.
I
So you've
don't know
handled
if
those
what
each
I'm
in
doing
different
yet.
ways.
Exactly.
I have to
The
think about
runes,
Ultimate
which do the
first.
first 2 things.
No, I'm
the
happy.
customization and the problem fixing. So early on,
But I think
runes
with the
are
customization,
resistance
it's
stuff.
even it's the sorry, what do you call them? The soul cores. like the runes are more about the kind of like I need to fix resistances, whereas the soul cores are more about like I want to customize my items in different ways than what I would otherwise normally be able to do. And then of course you've got the omens to solve the metacrafting problem. So we effectively moved all that stuff around. And essences, of course, yes, of course. So essences, what they allow you to do is get 2 deterministic mods. So because you can upgrade to blue, but you can also upgrade from blue to
this Path of Exile 2. It's not even out yet.
Rare with an essence as well. So that lets you kind of get some of that.
Oh,
stuff.
good! I just got my restream insights.
There's stuff you can do
Thanks.
there.
Thanks. I'm glad. Thanks for letting me know how my last stream went.
And that's just at the start of release.
Yeah, because obviously there's.
All right, I need to use the restroom. I'm gonna be right back.
More things, So yeah.
So I was worried that some of the changes you're making might move us away from some of the like deep, impactful crafting that we have, but it sounds like you are still allowing like powerful meta crafting and the ability to make like a really good item.
For sure.
But you're also making sure that like the physical item itself that you find matters more.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like the more subtle,
that's what it's all about, right?
There's so much more going on. I think just like clever things we've done with the item system as well. Like one of the things I love that we did is we've made it so that so we've got blue and yellow chests you can find now, and we've changed the world generation so that if a dead end is generated, the chance that you get a rare chest there is way higher. So effectively, if a rare chest will spawn in the area, then it will choose dead ends first to go there.
You feel better about the dead ends
yeah, effectively. So like that means that we effectively mean that like when like it makes the world feel like as far as item drops go, that like it feels intentional, right? Like I went down this into this dead end room, but look, there was a rare chest there, so I feel happy about it. Like that kind of thing is really cool. So there's things like that, but there's also the way that so we've alluded to it a few times, but the way that rarity now works, where the mods get better as rarity increases, and also things like the you get better currency rather than just it means we don't have to have like the spam of items that's like crazy. Like you actually feel like that you kill a boss and it drops good shit, as opposed to just lots of shit. That's I'm a big fan of how this feels. I think it's a lot better. But it does mean though, of course, if you're a PoE1 player and you see a boss kill, like the number of like the expectation of like, because a PoE1 player sees like looks at the amount of spam on the screen to some level as the way of like knowing how good the drops were. Now, of course, you got item filters
just
and everything.
To get something in my stomach right now.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly. That is a good way of putting it. It really is more about.
I also like when bosses drop good shit.
Ideally, you kill a lot of shit, and you pick
every 90% of the time when I play other games, they just drop a lot of shit.
That to me is a win, and I think we're basically getting it at that point.
I quite like how the exploration systems and that as well, with the chests down dead ends and things like that, acts as a player leveler in some ways. Where like a player is struggling.
Yep, the more you explore, the more stuff you'll find, and that's true as well.
I'm a big
optional encounters around the place as well. If you're struggling, go fight some optional content. There'll be stuff there that can drop and. And you will definitely find more things and
lots of guaranteed
they mentioned that
rare items here and there,
exactly.
and certain like that. So this little boss here will drop a rare caster item, and like heaps of stuff.
And the funny thing about that is that stuff came about a little bit from the fact that we actually had a problem where people were just face tanking bosses and dying over and over again. And they keep on respawning, and they would never be like, oh, I'm going to go away and actually find some other stuff. And so I was thinking for a long time about like, well, why is it that in other games that people don't do that? Like if I'm playing Elden Ring and I die to a boss 10 times, I'm not just gonna like just continue doing that. I'm gonna be
he's alone in
do
that.
Something else for a while. So we realized that the map, like the idea of
a lot of people will just
find,
face plant
against
the
really
boss for 12
part
hours in Elden Ring.
So in PoE 2 now, one of the recent things, and it's taken a lot of work from people to get this working, but now
that's down to the individual.
You can see all this sort of weird side encounters that have specific drops on the map, and that means that if you're having trouble with the boss, you're like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna go do some other stuff, and then you'll come back and you will be powerful enough to kill the boss much more easily because you do absolutely find the rewarding things.
There's a little chest on there or a little campsite.
There's lots of little hard-coded drops from specific bosses. The hard-coded drops, they only drop one time, so you can't just farm them endlessly. But effectively, if you go do all that side content and you check it all off, you'll get some very rewarding stuff.
Yeah, you got some pretty clever systems there, and I definitely noted
I would argue every piece of content in Elden Ring is side content, even main content.
But also, just
because you just stumble upon main content by accident sometimes.
And I think we
I'm
figured out
supposed
that,
to do
like,
this.
that some of that stuff reveals after you like find the waypoint in a zone.
I think
for
that's how it
example.
works. Is that?
What do you know?
It's either there's a few. So it's like either because an NPC told you about an area, in which case it just happens to be revealed, or at the very least, yes, when you get there. Generally, it's just when you get there you see everything.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a few different conditions that will reveal everything. It kind of depends. Like a lot of people just click through the dialogue, so they'll never know the NPC told them, but they maybe did.
I was checking my map kind of like when I went into a zone, and then maybe afterwards to see if there was anything.
But like you
I
never
missed.
get to an area and don't see some unless they are like very obviously hidden intentional secrets that
There's nearly
they
something
might
everywhere.
they might be there, they might not.
Yeah, so I
There
found
you go.
half
See,
of your
Rob's
key
got
of
it.
your secret quest.
Oh yeah, don't worry about that.
So pivoting into economy and trading, the exchange from Path of Exile's one experiment recently, we got a chance to actually try that live in the field, and it seems from the player's perspective it was a smash hit.
Yeah, definitely for us as well.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
solved a lot. Like we're 100% on board with that. It's very good.
It was the least stressful league I ever played.
Same.
What
I will be
normally caused
Rocky, yeah.
almost all the
Literally my
anger and
favorite.
friction for me was
Yes.
especially bulk trading. It
Incredible.
was horrible, and I
So
was just
good.
like, oh, this
Yeah,
is like
my
a dream
chat
come
was
true.
talking about how
Myself and
exchange was something.
so many other players, I feel like we're more
That's
engaged in
what we
endgame.
said
We're able to
anyway.
do the thing we wanted to do more,
Smash
and we're just
hit.
less
Glad to hear it.
aggravated
Yeah,
on a
no
moment-to-moment
fishing.
basis. It's good. So, do you take that then as like, as a big positive for it going into Path of Exile 2?
100%.
And
No,
how do you
no
feel like it adapts
fishing
to the game being
leagues.
quite different in the end?
No!
They are pretty different games. Like the economy works a bit differently.
I mean, honestly, I think it will just work. I mean, look, we have no idea what the trade values will settle on and like how that'll end up. But
Is it going to be chaos? Is it going to be exalted?
but ultimately, I think that the trades effectively Settlers was a test of what the economy will be like in PoE2, and to some extent because of the way that we did the gold and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty confident that that's going to be okay. But obviously, you never know, right? Like when lots of people hit the economy, what can happen? Hopefully, we don't cause like horrible hyperinflation or have some horrible issue like that. But I guess partly this is what an early access is.
No!
Was there any
No fishing.
testing.
Was there any surprises with that or with gold in terms of how things panned out?
Thankfully not, honestly. Like
Right.
we were worried, but thankfully none of the like horrible situations came to pass with that, and it ended up working just fine. So it went great.
Who'd have thought 10 years later we'd be back here saying, you know what? Gold was a good idea. We just had to do it right.
Exactly.
Because I remember 10 years ago,
it's funny,
we're like,
but it's
this
funny.
game's brilliant. It has no gold. Stupid gold.
But the funny thing is I don't think we would have arrived at the way gold is now if we had it in the first place.
Yeah.
Like the non-tradability of it, like using it as a sort of marker for how much play you've done.
Yeah.
I don't think that we would have ever had that way if we hadn't arrived from here. So
Yeah.
I think that path dependency kind of did matter.
Yeah.
Hi,
The
Ivy.
paths we weave.
Mm-hmm.
How likely then, based on just how successful it is, are you to want to expand the exchanges capabilities to like other things like maps or waystones or even gear?
Well, I mean, look, I'm interested in this, but I don't think it's necessary right now. So we're not going in early access, at least. We're not going to launch with any expanded stuff in that way. But I guess I do want to sort of see how it works, and I'm interested in potentially trying something like that in the future. I just don't like the currency exchange was like 90% of the problem.
Yeah.
And so fixing that like fixed a lot of the like it seemed like we would need to do more initially, and then maybe now it's seeming like maybe we don't, but I still want to experiment with it potentially. So I'm interested to see how it goes. But the currency exchange definitely helped a vast amount.
Those were the annoying trains.
Yeah,
most
they
of the
were
time.
for sure. They were.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Great. So we've had some.
Sorry, I've been taken over by Cat.
So this is a tricky question to answer, especially if we could just scroll down. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are you aiming for in terms of Path of Exile 2's kind of like personal player economy and progression?
This is actually a pretty important question, too.
How much resources you're acquiring, how you're using them, but also how much are you getting from trade versus from yourself?
I mean,
Solo
this is a tricky
self-out.
question, but I mean, I think that really feeling of like being able to trade is super important. So being able to get that stuff, I think, is good. Like not everyone wants to do that. You need to be able to progress through the game well without having to do much trade. But I do think that, like, you know, look, it's definitely going to be the case that if you're playing in a trade league, you're going to have the ability to accelerates you very significantly, and that's the case, and it will continue to be the case. And like, we are a game that embraces trade.
Yeah,
right?
well,
like,
I think the DNA of Path of Exile 1 is very much that, like, it is a game about economy and trade, and for some people, getting rich is their main motivator.
100%. So effectively, so I mean, that will absolutely be a factor. And look, like, I think that the feeling of that will probably end up feeling quite similar to PoE1 in that regard.
Yeah.
I think that's what, you know, that's the type of game we're making.
Yeah. Do you think it's that said though? Do you think it is in some ways better for a solo self-found sort of experience?
I mean, I simply because, again, as we talked about, we're dropping a lot more currency that we expect you to use on gear, as opposed to save till end game for one, and then by end game, like, we don't have Kirak mods costing, you know, that kind of stuff that all costs chaos, and you don't have like meta mods costing divines and all I'm right? They're all different items. You're like, I want meta mod crafting. There's a ritual.
You know where to get them as well,
right? So you're not just like having to. I'm blocked behind this thing because I need so many divines and I can't get that because I'm solo self-found, and farming divines is not exactly, you know, beyond trivial. Yeah. So, you know, there's a number of ways there where I'd say it is honestly a much better solo self-found experience. But, you know, each to their own, that to be seen, and, you know.
And there'll be a separate solo self-found mode, presumably, even potentially beta launch or in the future?
It is our intention to have hardcore and solo self-found.
We'll have both of them.
Right, cool.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't play hardcore for your first round, honestly.
No, come on, let's go.
You're likely to die. Like, once you learn the boss mechanics, it should be fine. But
someone's gonna.
First time, you know, it's gonna be tricky.
Yeah, hardcore only,
Couch
of course.
hardcore, and you get to see your friend die right next to you. That's the true dream.
Actually, hang on, wait. In couch co-op hardcore, do we still lock the camera so you can't walk away from your friend?
No, we put you back to solo.
You back to solo? Okay, great. Good. That's good to know. It's like you have
to have a mourning period of about 30 seconds.
Right.
But you're just like, all right, you can go home now. We're like, go.
See ya.
What do you do?
Yeah, that's a devastating moment. I did lose my place there. I think we mentioned the co-op support and everything. And we'll scroll down and take some of the additional questions here. Excellent, thanks.
We haven't even gotten to additional questions yet.
Will there be a penalty for individual party member dying when grouping up for bosses on that note then? It seems weird that the boss straight up resets when playing solo, but when playing in a group, nothing happens if a party member dies.
So tell us about the rules
now
that we have, because I know you've changed it recently.
So, bosses are obviously harder for having more people.
Yep.
Less crowd controls, things like obviously more life, and I'm not just saying double life, more than double life, right? It does get more than twice as hard, or more than N players as hard. So yes, you could argue, okay, we have reviving as an advantage. Well, yes, it does. It does take time to revive, and if your friend dies early and you're unable to revive them because you're constantly being interrupted, well,
from what I saw, it's pretty hard.
You're
to pull
not
off
having a
you,
fun time.
Get a big stun or something.
Another change we made recently is, of course, for each revived.
I mean, it doesn't mean I can't use a grenade launcher, but I probably
every time
will.
You have to revive them, the revive takes.
Although
longer
I am
kind of,
I do like the cross.
So that's important because it just means that if you're like, you can't revive spam anymore because it's going to take longer and longer each time. But then when you go to a checkpoint, that resets. So like, you're back to normal again.
Now, in in-game maps, you cannot revive each other. Death is a consequence.
Yeah. I was going to ask actually about like in-game maps and what is the rule for dying in in-game map? Is it one portal deal now, not 6 portals?
Well, you still have 6 portals, so you can have your party members, but death.
And you can leave and come back as long as you don't die. So you can take items out, but a death will end that map for you.
And to remind people, the if you like log out or the server crashes or something like, not that that's going to happen, then the game pauses. So when you boot the game back up on
that's going to happen.
It's
probably
and also even we've also now have it so that if you just Alt F4 the game at a random time, you'll actually, even if you come back like the next day, because for example you might have rage quit, you will appear back at the checkpoint you were at. So if you are like fighting a boss, you die a bunch of times, you're like, ah, crap,
that would never happen.
You come back, you're going to be right there at the boss checkpoint again.
That part is campaign specific because there are no checkpoints in maps.
Yeah, non-maps. But in for the campaign though, and that honestly has helped a lot. Like there were so many. I think it really did cause new players to have problems in PoE1 where they felt like they just lost track of where the hell they even were when they came back after a session. If like they might have not got waypoints for certain times or things like that. Like you now kind of the situation where you log back in and you're like, oh, I forgot like 3 waypoints in a row and now I'm like freaking miles away from where I was, which I think happened to new players fairly frequently.
I'm glad in a world where everyone's becoming a Souls-like that you guys didn't do the running back to the boss. Segment of gameplay, and you just kind of jump back in, and have another crack.
So effectively, like that's nice to just have the save checkpoints to your character, which I think is a nice one.
Were there any other mechanics around there? Reviving? Well, obviously in hardcore, you did. That's the drill.
You did.
So your maps almost embraces a kind of semi-hardcore mentality there, where there is actual cost. Like we went through so many iterations here, where it's like, okay, like. The moment that you have to spend something of economic value to do the attempt, hence a map item, and especially if it's got breaches and all this content that's coming from precursor tablets, all this stuff is worth stuff. So you all of a sudden have heaps of stuff on the line, and then you don't want to be in a position where you're like, I need to bring in some people to do this because I'm not going to risk that value. So that's why we just were like in maps, no reviving. It's just like, yeah, sure. You still can always bring in any context someone way more powerful than you to carry things, right? That's the benefit of multiplayer. But feeling like you have to do this thing because then they can just keep reviving you so you can get all the rewards. Like we're trying to get away from all of that. Otherwise you get this weird thing where like you're often always too scared to do the thing. Yeah. Now you're scared, but everyone's scared and it's fine, and you don't feel like you're like, okay, you have to go in with a sense of confidence.
I would assume
like,
you
I
could
can
just
definitely
open
do
the
this
node
thing.
again with another.
So it's just a little bit less fear when it comes to
keystone.
all of a sudden doing that.
That's much better in the context of the fact that you can pause the game if your cat's on fire or if the server crashes or something that you
Early
just
access
paused
will be
and you
December
can
6th.
jump back in as well. You're failing because of your
I would assume you've just like
now
given
it's
up
worth
that-
noting in
that
multiplayer we do have a thing,
map,
of course,
and now
with
you need
respawn
to
at
use
checkpoints as an
another
option. So
waystone
if a
in order
player
to get
dies and you don't want to you don't want to
reset it
die,
and
you
do it
don't want
over
to finish the
again.
fight out, you can both choose to respawn at checkpoint, and then it will just create a new instance.
Cool.
You don't have to die to do it, and you don't have to log out and do any shenanigans like that. You can just press escape, hit respawn at checkpoint.
Yeah, but
it'll ask other players to confirm,
you can't
and then it
have
moves
the
you all to the
Atlas
new area.
completely block you from
Excellent.
doing anything.
I don't want to go super on it because we've definitely talked about it before, but click to move versus WSD, it's definitely been asked about a bit.
So
there's
they'll
been
be
plenty
well
of reports
aware
about WSD being amazing.
that
Personally,
if
I've been
with
using
all
it a
of your
ton.
paths
I'm really enjoying it.
blocked,
I know a
you're
lot of
fucked.
you've said a lot of people
Like,
around the
completely
office
bricked.
have like given it a try and adapted to that, but it has raised the point for people that
They
feel
will
like they're still
know that, especially if a
very much
lot
against
of new
that for
people
whatever
are
reason,
trying
or maybe that they
PoE2 for the
literally
first time.
only have one hand and and want to use
That's
click to
going
move
to
still.
be a problem.
How does it stack up? How does click to move still stack up now?
I think honestly it's fine. Like it's not been a problem.
There was a time where every time I'd go to sit down at a developer's computer, there'd be in WSD, and just because it's a little bit easier to move around again or whatever. But lately, I'd say now it's back to almost every designer's computer I sit back down at to go play. They're back and click to move.
Interesting.
Yep. It's gone full tilt the other way.
Interesting.
And I'm always like, change
Wonder why
it back.
that is.
But even watching
probably
Octavian
do
play
WSD.
on click to move,
He's a
like,
click to move player, yeah.
He's
You have a few
100% click to move. He
purists
is
there.
very proficient with that.
Yeah.
With it, like,
That'll be reassuring for I think some of the people that
Yeah.
are
Yeah, I wouldn't have
worried about
expected
being
click to move
forced
to be
into WA.
like any different. Like
Even
I
though
played
it
click
is
to move
obviously
for every
playing
game
so
that had it
well
until
by all
WSD started being
accounts.
standard. And even then, sometimes I
That's
do
very
it.
good then. Yeah, and Octavian's often doing the demonstrations
Yes.
for your live
Yes.
things too,
Yes.
so you'll be able to see that
Yeah.
even.
I have to force him to play WSD sometimes because I'm like, I think the Mercenary looks so much better with WSD just visually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really
so
does.
I'll tell him to.
It does feel very good on the Mercenary.
Yeah,
You've got
yeah.
that kind of like stalking through, especially with that kind of like preparational
Yeah.
tactical
Yeah, I don't know.
play
With
style.
Monk, I'm probably like with a
loving it so
ranged
far.
class, like he's talking about
We
mercenary.
did
I'm
already talk about
probably
skin
more
transfers.
likely to
Could we
WASD.
scroll down to
Whereas
any additional
a
questions that we have?
melee,
feel
I
like
am
don't
more
even know how long
likely
we're
to
going
do
for,
click
but-
to move.
I mean,
feeling
it's been a
physical
while. We're
fatigue
getting
creep in at this
yeah,
point.
Yeah, exactly. we've been rolling.
Yeah, we've been
Yeah.
going. I'm fatigued. I'm
People
not
asking
even
if it's
doing
going to be
the
anything like challenges or challenge rewards in the early
Oh, I'm going
access
not
or
not
beta.
at first,
Yeah.
no.
We will do it later, though.
Did I ask about races, events, and private leagues?
I think not initially, but we will do it later for sure.
Cool.
I think I'm not sure what happened because I think the issue was that the private league interface was like on the PoE.
I don't know which monk I want to go yet because Elemental.
It wouldn't be far away though. Like, it won't take us that long before we get to it. Like, you know.
I can't exactly remember
other
either,
one
but
has
it wouldn't
really
be private
nice
leagues in
stuff.
particular wouldn't be far away.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we'll have them, just not like right initially potentially.
And I think I did miss this actually. So cluster jewels are a thing or not a thing? Are they've been kind of replaced by those
Yeah,
radius?
we replaced them with that almost like rollable timeless jewel kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
At least for now, there's like so much passive tree there, and the jewels accomplish the kind of off-build thing anyway.
You
Like,
hardly need to add the extra passive trees on your passive trees.
yes,
yet.
yes, we do. Yeah,
That's after launch.
We made the passive tree implicitly bigger, so you know.
The cluster
But
jewels
yes.
are in the tree already.
That's again, I talk about like year 3
I need
features.
passive trees
That's
within
around
my
like year
nodes
3
on
to
the
year
passive
5
tree.
feature as well. So
Yeah. We got another decade of what we had with Path of Exile
Yeah.
1 to look forward to for Path of Exile 2, hopefully, before we start worrying about Path of Exile 3, maybe.
Jeez.
Yeah, let's start developing Path of
starting-
Exile.
starting
Sounds like a good idea.
wow.
We so I guess to just finish us off for today then, do you guys have a recommendation of what is the best class to play in the beta?
I mean, that's a very hard one. Honestly, like so.
There's so many choices now.
There are. So let me. Well,
This
okay.
is dangerous.
If we're going by the numbers,
Oh, yeah.
if we go by player satisfaction reports on per class, we break it down
Yeah,
from the
I
beta.
mean, this is good technical information here.
Then that means the monk is very interesting because the monk
Yes!
is the class that dies the most often.
Oh,
But it's
Yeah.
also the class that when people play it, they have the highest satisfaction
That's
level.
fun.
By a
Yeah!
very, very tiny margin that compares to the others.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it is like glass cannon, you know, like it's very fast, but you have to,
Yeah.
you
I
have
mean,
to retreat and move in and out. So,
I fell in love with the monk
that's,
playing it. It looks like it's gotten a little better.
yeah,
this
that's
way.
interesting. But I think if you're a new player, then the mercenary, if you're like used to shooters and stuff, I think playing the mercenary could be a good win. Like I really love that class. It's,
the mercenary with
I've
the
been
jewels, with just
loving
going with the
mercenary,
monk, with going with the
but
the
to me
bow
it feels
staff
like
might
you need to
honestly
really
be
be
kind of like
considering
a
each
really
engagement a
interesting
lot
way to
more.
do
It's
it.
a bit more
Roundabout
tactical.
motion.
maybe, I
and
don't know. Like
considered.
I like it. I
you don't have that
really
ability
like
to
that.
correct if you
But
make a mistake.
honestly, like I mean, I go through favorite classes all the time. Whenever I change to play a different class, it becomes my favorite.
That's my current favorite.
So you know, it's
Nice.
whatever I'm playing tends to be the thing. So yeah, right now I'm doing a mercenary playthrough, so that's probably why I'm into that. But yeah, it's I'm not sure if you've got a similar.
No, you were talking about the numbers as well. It was interesting that monk and then warrior had the highest
Yes,
satisfaction levels.
warrior's
and I was
next.
like,
By the way, technically, if you're looking for
that's pretty good. That's
Yeah, yeah.
2 melee classes.
exactly,
right now.
exactly.
That's a win.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that's something going on. I mean, they were dying a lot more at the time, but
yeah, yeah.
It's such a
Ivy.
change from like, especially early Path of Exile 1. Like, it's gotten a little better in modern days, but still.
I mean,
melee.
I just have a like real desire to freeze
Why?
time, so I just want to be sorceress and just go. I don't know what
It's good
skills
to get some
I'll play.
sorceress love. I feel like she's not been getting enough attention.
I don't know what skills I'll play, but I definitely just want to be able to freeze time. So
Yeah.
it just feels cool.
All right. So
Yeah,
you
I
could
would
be
probably
playing,
go
you could be
totems
playing
for
crossbow
warrior,
building.
too.
Yeah, I
That
might be a
seems
crossbow
really
time
attractive
freezer.
to
I
me.
don't know. We'll see what's going on.
Getting the
Yeah,
ascended
alright.
spirits and
I
everything.
I noted that our mercenaries were very different as well. I was playing full Grenader. You were
I was doing
combo.
the freeze
Yeah.
freeze shotgun.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I know
nice,
what, yeah. Some sort of monk trigger build, obviously. It's always just going to be fun
yeah.
to
Yeah,
play
they
around
have so many
with
of
and,
those like stacking effects, the wind
Yeah.
and the ice coming off it, and the ascendancies showed some more as well. Oof.
just see how
Yeah,
far they
I'm
can be
thinking
pushed
elemental monk.
and how many spells
It's
can
just
I
so
get
much
to
more
trigger
me
per
than
second.
Dark monk.
Monk does seem good for that.
Minion
Alrighty.
reward. Yeah,
Well, thank
especially
you very
permanent
much
minions
for
and the
your time,
support
both
gems
of
for
you,
minions
for- I
are going
don't
to be
even know how
really,
long.
really
That was a
good.
mammoth session. I
I
think coming up
always
to 1
think I
o'clock
wanna
here.
do
So
those,
There's still,
you know,
there's
I
still
never
lots
have
to
fun
talk
with
about,
them
but I think
when
we
I
just
do
need
them.
some time to digest.
for sure.
Like I would be like,
thankfully we didn't have
turrets
everyone
for
saying patch notes
mercenary
when
or
this
artillery
time.
for
So good.
mercenary.
So that means
So
we actually
good.
have a
Monk or
conversation.
warrior.
There's no pressure,
Like,
so, like,
those
wrap it up,
extra
boys.
physical
Exactly.
structures are always like something I enjoy
so,
interacting
yeah, that's
with.
good.
But for some reason,
Fantastic.
minions
All
just
right,
don't
thank you very
do
much
it.
for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the Q&A. That's a good day.
They want patch notes now.
Patch notes
Oh,
now.
patch notes, perfect. Let's go.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Where's the
what do you mean a
launch
launch
notes?
has
Yeah.
patch
Yeah.
notes?
All right. All right. Yeah. And
No,
thank you very much.
Thanks
Great.
heaps. Appreciate it. It's been an epic journey.
Garen
It's kind of
build.
surreal. And it's only the start of another journey, really.
Well, I mean,
so
I
that's
had it.
Yeah.
I got my
Nice
drop,
point. Cool.
so I'm not
I mean, I'm
sure.
going to go play more now, but
Yeah, true.
sorry.
I got to go fix bosses going up elevators and
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just pre-bug testing. So. All right. I assume we've faded out and cut.
Hopefully.
you never know.
No. I assume we faded out and cut. No, you never really know. And then and then it happens after that. Well, there was no formal goodbye. It was like, thanks for watching, keeps talking. Like, there was no break. There was no, like, wave goodbye. And so the person behind the camera had no idea that they were supposed to shut it off until he just said that. That's so funny. I assume it's been cut out by now. Oh, you never really know. That's one of the best ways I've ever seen a show end. Even Ziggy was like that. Yeah, it was there was a lot of information that's obviously just going to go over my head until I experience it. A lot of comparisons to PoE 1, specifically in the Q&A. But I mean, the only thing that really mattered to me, I saw very early on. And it was the experimentability, I don't think that's how you say that, of builds as you play. That was my problem with PoE 1, is that I didn't like... Obviously, it's changed over the years, or it's become, you know, they've added quality of life. But I never really felt good about going in and experimenting versus what my experience would be. The later you decide to experiment, the worse the respecking becomes with Orbs of Regret. With the exchange, it's probably a lot easier, I imagine. It probably, with the personal untradeable gold using the exchange, I assume it's just a far easier experience. But if gold's going to be the primary currency that makes it easy, then just using gold on the tree itself, you know, that's just logical. They have gold respec at PoE 1. Okay. Orbs of Regret just effectively save you gold. Yeah, that's honestly the only thing that matters. I know gold is incredibly new. They even talked about it here in PoE 1. That was the thing. It was just like experimenting with builds. You genuinely felt like you were just either holding yourself back or pushing back your progress later. The later you went and the later you respec, the worse the experience was. So if you had something that kind of worked early, well, yeah, I mean, it should become more expensive the higher level you are. Your gold economy should increase as well. That's fine. But the bottom line is that the experience of respecking by, like, it's easier to make mistakes earlier than it is to make them later, because your earlier mistakes compound into later mistakes. And the problem is the ability to fix said mistakes. It's like, for example, let's say that someone who's like a PoE 1 vet tells you that experiment up to 50 and then decide if you want to respec at 50, because after 50 it becomes very expensive. That's better than pull up the guide and get going right from level 1, or even your act clearing experience is going to be subpar. Exactly. Yeah, it's just about being able to have an experimental early part. That was my only problem with PoE 1. It was never about the dauntingness of the tree or the compounding systems or none of that. It was literally just I wanted to just go blind into early levels, and doing so did not feel good. Every time I tried, it felt like I was making a mistake. I think they just rated somebody who was going over the foot. Yeah, there's just somebody going over the footage. Darth Micro. That's actually such a good name too. Yeah, so that was, never minded using guides, but yeah, like, don't get me wrong. And that's like a super personal preference and experience. I'm not saying the game needs to be any particular way. I'm saying that was my barrier for entry. Oh, when you said nice DM, I was like, I didn't have any DMs on screen. His favorite mode didn't make it into early access. Yeah, and it's really a personal thing. I like to make mistakes. Like, that's why I have my no backseating rule, because I like to make mistakes, because you understand a game better when you fuck up. Like, when you do it yourself and you realize, hey, I didn't do this right, you understand the game a lot better. And even if you need a guide to get to the right answers, you still understand the wrong decisions better, which helps you make better decisions later on. So, and with PoE 1, I felt like making the wrong decision made it swung too much in that direction. I want to be okay making the wrong decision in the beginning of the game and fixing it later. I just need the opportunity to fix it later. That's all. Or I need it to be accessible to fix the mistake later. So I feel a lot more comfortable with what they talked about in PoE 2 here, with that I'm probably going to pick something that's not great. Like, I'm going to experiment into some stuff, try, a few different stacking buffs. Probably I'm going to go I'm already feeling like in terms of elemental, I want to go more momentum based. I want to have a lot of active buffs that are compounding on top of each other. And that's going to be kind of the focus that I go for. A little bit of ice for crowd control, et cetera, et cetera. But at some point, I'll understand I don't know that this game nearly as well as somebody else, because obviously in terms of game loyalties, I put a lot more of my time into something else. That's where you hit that point where you go, okay, now to turn to the experts, right? I had my fun. I had my experimentation. I learned a lot in the process. Now, go and see what people have figured out, stuff that's way easier to understand, and have a more direct goal to work towards. Because my goal early is to learn and fuck up and figure out how the game works. And my goal later is to be optimal. And when I hit the later part and I need to be optimal, 100%, the guides it's instantly going to be the case when the guides come in. Yeah, I tried to get a friend in PoE once and tried to get them to be correct. Sometimes correct later is also not correct early, too. I remember the last time I played PoE 1 was ages ago, but I remember reading that the most popular builds, some of the most popular late game builds, if you tried to build into them immediately while you were leveling, like if somebody just said, oh, a Flicker Strike is like the #1 skill, right? And so you grab Flicker Strike early on and you start building it. You might get fucked because Flicker Strike just might not be good at that point in the game. And now your early game experience is totally fucked. So that's why you needed the exact guide to understand you don't go into Flicker Strike right away. You start with this thing because it makes the early game easier and then transition into Flicker Strike later, because now at this level, you'll have XYZ tools that actually enable the Flicker Strike build. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, that's kind of those are the kinds of issues I have with PoE 1. I don't see that happening with the way they have presented PoE 2. I see I'm going to make mistakes and have the abilities to fix them. Hell, even the fact that they have one-time quests as you're playing through the acts that specifically give you items to power up to finish the act, effectively acting as mistake insurance. On top of your build maybe not working to beat the boss, you also have mistake insurance, or maybe just even RNG mitigation for maybe it just didn't get good items as I was going through, or like I'm having a hard time convincing myself to approach a better item. Yeah, I want to make my own build. Yeah, and like eventually, yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. Even if I do eventually end up with a cookie cutter build, I want to get to the point where I made that decision after playing the game a whole lot. I just want to hit a point where I go, you know what? Let me see what other people are doing. Let me see what the build guides are doing. Am I close to something that's good? But that's like a decision I want to make later. I don't want to make that decision at level 1. And that's what it feels like in PoE 1, to me at least, or it felt. I should say felt, past tense with my experience. So all I saw here was a gem system that is super flexible, a high amount of progression options, even through the acts into the Atlas and the endgame activities, and open experimentation that there's a cost to respecking, but you won't feel bad about respecking. Yeah, PoE 1. I mean, honestly, I had a lot of friends who told me that in PoE 1. They said you make a character where you go as far as you can until your fuck-ups have compounded to the point where it's unfixable, and then make a second character. I've had my friends who play PoE tell me that. And I was just like, they're like, well, your other option is to use a guide right from level 1. And I was just like, what the fuck? Why are those the only two options? They were like, I mean, you could go farm Orbs of Regret or trade for Orbs of Regret, but honestly, just make a second character. That's what they used to tell me. So I was like, I'm not going to do that. What the fuck? I'm not going to do that. So, yeah, that's what I didn't want to see. The number one thing I wanted to see was how they're approaching build experimentation, blind build experimentation from the people who are not like super knowledgeable about the game, but understand the core principles of this genre of game and, you know, what the game mechanics that have been presented to them actually do. So, moment I found a build guide, the game got me hooked. Yeah, I mean, but the problem is I do not want a build guide to get me hooked. I want the game to get me hooked. It's just like a personal thing. Like I might have a ton of fun with whatever build I end up looking up. But the fact that I had to, like, I'm being told to do that from an early spot, I just don't like that. I don't like that being the way to resolve the issue of overcoming early game challenges. I just want the freedom to fuck up. That's all it is. I want that with every single player game that I buy to some capacity. I think there's some games that still don't know how to properly do that. They like, no, it's okay to fuck up, but also if you did, you're doomed. Oh, I didn't disconnect on my end, so hopefully I didn't F. I had no disconnect. No, looks fine to me. Good. For once, it wasn't me. Thank God. F for fine. Yeah, that's it. That's all there is to me. I think I've made the point, essentially. I think you understand what I'm saying. And it's just what I need. It's just a personal thing, but it's how I feel. And I feel confident about that after that stream. I feel let me rephrase. I feel more confident. Obviously, I still need to play it, right? But going in, I'm not intimidated. Like all those trees and like complex systems, those don't intimidate me at all. It's just a lot of systems. But I don't necessarily find any of those systems complex. There's just a lot of them. I'm not intimidated. Or at least that's just how I feel. Yeah, Fruit Clear into PoE2 early access, pretty much. Yeah. I was going to be in the Fantasian, but this is right after, and I've already played through the first third of Fantasian, so I'll get around to Fantasian at some point, because I do really want to play it and finish it. Have I interacted with Ziggy? I have a video on my channel with Ziggy. It's one of the first people I ever collaborated with. He did a video. There's a video on his channel and a video on my channel. I also just know a bunch of people who play PoE, like just in general. Because I mean, it's look at it. I know JP and Strippin. Like, I know those guys. Like, I know plenty of people who put time into it. My boy Tech puts a decent amount of time into it. Big trees overwhelmed the ADD brain. Yeah, those are fine for me. I love to ponder over possibilities. That's my big thing. I like to look at a giant mountain and ponder over all the possibilities. So I don't see that as like something to scare me away. It's more like a promise of things to come. It's just an outlook thing for me, I suppose. A lot of it's just, I mean that's how all games are, but it's just a lot of personal preference. I want to read all the funny shit. Yo, I actually am kind of glad. I would like them to not drop the skill tree before early access, because you know what happens if the skill tree is dropped before early access? It means that suddenly the discussions become about things people have figured out before the game has even come out. And I know it's all math based and not like based on the game itself. So sometimes that stuff changes. Napkin math is not always number one, but napkin math's a lot more valuable in games like this, because they are effectively all math games. Like, yeah, there's some skill, but there's more math than anything else that goes into this. A lot of like multipliers, it's about understanding the order of the way that, well, I guess with the tree, I mean, they would probably base it on PoE 1's math, like base damage versus where multipliers are applied and damage. Yeah, I mean, it's just a whole thing. A day in advance, sure, but like a week in advance, I think a day is like the extent of what I would like, because I don't want to decline people who really want to do that kind of research in advance, but I just, as someone who wants to be into it but doesn't want to be that into it, I don't want every discussion I have to be about builds I should be doing before the games even come out. Like, yo, did you see the math on this monk build? Man, you should make sure you pick up this, because the math from the sheet that's been out for the last week says this, and that's like, shut the fuck up. I don't care, my dude. Like, just, I don't fucking care. Like, there's so many that's the thing. Like, even if you take time to do some math needs to be tested. Sometimes what is theoretically a really high damage build is also a build. Oh my God, that's the number one thing. You know how many early builds are mathematically tied to your output and get you fucking murdered in the process? Do you know how often some shit like that happens where somebody just wants to math out like something that's crazy offensive and like not everyone, but like the majority of napkin math leans towards that insane output, and that's the thing that gets around, and then everyone fucking dies repeatedly. Even if there's like recommendations like, oh, you know, make sure you have this much all res or this much defense or this much health to offset. It's like somebody's still just going to take the math because they don't actually understand the math. They're just being told the math says that. And they're going to fucking die. Yeah, Monster Hunter endgame guides. I know it's not nearly to the same capacity of math, but it is actually very similar where people are like, yeah, go this build in Monster Hunter. And then you eat shit because you just get hit once and you're fucking dead. Hey, what's going on, Sayuan? And some people want that. That's fine. Like, the problem is that it becomes the thing everyone says. Like, everyone spreads to everyone else that that's the thing to do. I also can't wait for Wilds. The beta was good. The multiplayer was jank as fuck. But the beta was still really good. And I actually think I might go Sword and Shield in Wilds instead of going Hammer. Just after playing, I don't know, maybe if they adjust the hit stop in Wilds, it'll feel better. But like SNS was feeling primo good. I'm gonna be Bard for Ultimate. Only make me feel, yeah, listen, we got enough titles before then. Think we'll be all right. Yeah, the fast ones. Yeah, SNS felt really good. My favorite thing about SNS was being able to launch myself to hit weak spots. Like to latch onto the tail effectively, the tail that's off the ground. And to be able to punish on that by using like, it just, I felt like I had way more opportunities to actually fight monsters that had like body parts off the ground as SNS, whereas the hammer still felt like all I care about are the head and the weak spot on the head. It never felt like yeah, I could go for the leg weak spots, like sure, like anything that's low to the ground, but anything like even just a little bit off the ground became frustrating. So on top of the hit stop making it not feel as good, and feeling like I could really only interact with about half of the monster, and I didn't feel like that interaction was as valuable as the interaction I could have with Sword and Shield. It was a big, big thing. Also, I felt like they increased the frames on perfect guarding. I don't know if I'm crazy. I don't know if anyone else played SNS in the Wilds beta. Or maybe anything else with a block, but it's just me, or there were way more perfect guard frames. Like double the amount from like previous titles. That's how it felt to me, at least. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I'm just blocking everything. I don't even need to fucking worry about anything else. It's just like, poof, bam, done. Yeah, I multi-stream every day. Hyper. Trial and error. Yeah, trial and error is a big thing. So yeah, very positive response. I'm glad I got sponsored to watch this, because with the way my schedule has been between Dragon Quest and 14 stuff, I might not have watched this. I might have just like caught the cliff notes of it on like, or I might have just had my chat tell me about it. But now I'm like pumped. Now, sometimes that's all you need. So I just need to get people through the door. And my door was, they were like, hey, can we sponsor you to watch this? I'd be like, hell yeah. Maybe they increased it for I'm just talking about the standard one though. All I know is that it felt way easier to perfect guard in Wilds. Like it was laughably easy. And if it's still that laughably easy and live, then, dude, I think I might be an SNS player instead for Wilds than Hammer. It's really going to depend on how it feels in February. Or maybe even if they do another beta with like a really high level monster. All right. Anyway, this went way longer than I expected it to. So I am going to wrap up and get some food in my stomach. I took my pre-workout like almost 2 hours ago. And that was not expected. All right. But anyway, thanks everyone for hanging out. Tomorrow will be Final Fantasy XIV until about 11 a.m. And then we're doing State of the Realm to talk about Final Fantasy XIV Mobile and a minor spoiler cast bit because we didn't get to talk about MSQ last week. And I have a dentist appointment at 1 p.m. They got to check on my dental implant from a few weeks back. So I got to make sure that's all said and done. Then Saturday, I'll be back to normal. One of those days, I might finish my platinum for DQ3. I'm working on it off stream. So we'll see. That might just feature as like the final hour of a stream at some point. Sunday, I'll be live at 2 in the fucking morning because my raid group wants to do a 2 a.m. raid ahead of Ultimate, which just fucks my, I actually fucks my schedule super hard. But it's 7 against 1 on that, so I'm not going to say no. And then Monday will be a normal day, and then Tuesday's Ultimate, and then it'll be 12 to 16 hours a day from that Tuesday till clear, and then PoE 2 after Ultimate is done. So crazy times ahead. Crazy times. So I will see all of you tomorrow for Final Fantasy XIV and for State of the Realm. So enjoy the remainder of your Thursdays, and I will see you tomorrow. Until then, I bid you adieu. Bye-bye.